Today is December 30th. Welcome to Native Calgarian. Oki, Naganago, Mekoche, Chestakom Aki. My name is Red Thunder Woman. My married English name is Michelle Robinson, and I use she and her pronouns. Native Calgarian is being recorded on the lands of the Niitsitapi, which is the Blackfoot Confederacy. The Blackfoot south of the imposed U.S.-Canadian border are the Blackfeet. North of the border are the Siksika, Gunai, and Bagani of the Confederacy. These lands were signed September 22nd, 1877 for Treaty 7, with signatures that include the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Wesley, Chiniki, Bearspaw Nations of the Stoney, and the Dene from Tsuut'ina. I acknowledge all First Nation, Métis, Inuit, status and non-status across Turtle Island as the keepers of these lands. All non-Indigenous are treaty partners with the government signing on your behalf. I honor the Blackfoot as the elders and members have been so kind to me on my Red Road journey. Elder Red Crane taught me how to pronounce my spirit name. I was born in Calgary, or in Blackfoot Mokinstis as Michelle Elliott, a very English name, which has afforded me privilege in an English colonial world. My mother is Northern Slavey Dene or Satu Dene, but my Indian Act imposed status card by the Canadian government says Yellowknives Dene. My father is so Canadian. I'm a daughter of the Mayflower and a daughter of the American Revolution while having an Indian Act imposed status card. My Dene lineage roots me in the land of the Hare people, also called the Great Bear Lake people in Treaty 11. I'm a native to Turtle Island, and my Dene nation is a visitor to this area of Clinchotine Indahe in my Dene language, meaning mini horse town, named after the Calgary Stampede. Land acknowledgements are critical for creating a safer space for Indigenous, as well as honoring the host as the guest, as a guest, and acknowledging your role as a treaty partner. My humblest apologies to Blackfoot elders, language keepers, as I try to learn proper pronunciation. Any mistakes or misinterpretations will be on me. I encourage questions so that misunderstandings can be cleared up as soon as possible. I do not speak on behalf of all Indigenous. I just share what I know as I walk down the red road. My Patreon account is Native Calgarian, where you can pledge and support. Thank you to my previous donors for already showing your support. If you value listening or watching and can afford to give, thank you. To those who cannot afford to give, I'd love to hear from you at nativeyyc@gmail.com, where you can send in your comments or your questions. Also, giving a review helps whatever medium you're listening from. I have a YouTube channel where you can go and subscribe, and you can go to nativecalgarian.com for the latest podcasts. There's pin posts on social media that also have the latest podcasts. And if you want a land acknowledgement teaching from me, you can go to my website. So with that, I'm really excited to do kind of an end of year conversation with my friends. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, Michelle. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Ximena Gonzalez, and I'm a Calgary-based freelance writer and editor. I write mostly for the Sprawl and the real estate section of the Globe and Mail, and whoever takes my stories. It's funny that we're doing an end of year review because it's like this was also my first year as a freelance writer, so it's kind of fun. And in terms of my background, I'm originally from Mexico, so it's like Mexico, then I came here, so I don't have much to say about that. In Mexico, we're all mestizos, which means we are a mix of like Spanish with Indigenous, with everything that came and Mexico didn't quite recognize and follow. So I don't really know what I am. And I think it's really interesting what you say about names and how your name has earned you some privilege. Because for me, it's been the opposite. Having a name that's spelled with an X, I feel like it's like, oh, so weird. And it's usually the first thing that people want to talk about. And it's a nice icebreaker, not that I mind it. But yeah, like even in writing, people can tell that I'm different. So yeah, names are important.
It's huge. It's a huge conversation to have about what privilege is having like a so-called English colonial name. And I have an English colonial name, and that has got me my foot in the door over and over again. And I don't think people understand that in any capacity. And I say that because so my stepmom, her name is Roswitha Pyrich. She's from Austria, but the first thing she did was white code her name to Rose, right? So and that's real, that's reality. And she never says her actual last name because you have to say it with an accent, and then people know you're not from here. And because of
Mhm.
discrimination, that's such a problem here. And then, you know, conversely, if my last name was indigenous sounding, or my first name, uh, again, people and their anti-indigenous bias, they're so discriminatory. So like there's anti-immigrant there, anti-indigenous, like it's so obvious if your name isn't like, you know, a certain way. And then we literally named our daughter um, with that in mind. We said, well, what's a good name for getting a good job? What's a good
Mhm.
name? And of course now, now that we're kind of decolonizing and having conversations about, you know, your name being your name, even I'm struggling. Like, do I change my name to my spirit name? And ironically, in our culture, our spirit name can change. So this one time only by the Canadian or by the Alberta government letting you change your name for free, you know, and it's unfortunate, but for Indigenous people, that means that name's staying as opposed
Yeah.
to uh, evolving and having that evolution. Like it's so funny. I just started a job and I'm learning a lot about Service Alberta, and it's incredible the amount of classifications they put a person into. So, you know, that idea of renaming yourself and then renaming all of your documents, it would be so overwhelming. I think for most people to constantly do that. I mean, keeping your address sometimes up to date is enough.
Yeah, totally, totally. After I applied for to immigrate here, like I got married and everything, and then I was like, oh, I considered changing my name, and I was, well, I can use my middle name because that's easy, and take on my husband's last name, which is Robinson, by the way. And then I was like, then I have to change everything many times because my immigration process was like ongoing, and I was like, you know, no, I'm keeping everything as is. And if it's going to continue to be a problem to find a job, well, whatever. This is who I am. And I prefer that than having to explain, oh, my name is this, but it's also this. And other names in the past forever. It's like, no, I'm going to have the same name. Continue. From now on, nothing will change.
Well,
So
and
I am
ironic,
not Mary Robinson.
yeah, oh, that's so funny. And ironically, like my maiden name is Elliot, so it's really colonial too.
Mhm.
But ironically, you're always known by your maiden name anyway. So the idea of taking on, you know, your husband's name nowadays, like it now that I see all they care about on, you know, birth certificates or whatever is your maiden name anyway. So it's just it's so stupid. I don't even know why we change our last names now that I kind of see how the whole process works. So anyway, I was just being lazy before. I didn't update most of my records just because I'm like, well, he's my husband. I'll take his last name. But legally, um, you know, if it wasn't for that marriage certificate, and it still has my maiden name on it, so it's not like I've changed a lot. It's just such a weird conversation, but it's such a
Yeah.
colonial conversation. And I don't think people understand it. Like this was totally an imposed system to categorize people.
Yeah, yeah. Why should my last name not be my last name anymore? Like it's my husband owns me or something, you know? I mean, I'm so glad that here it's okay, and like it's, if you want to do it, you can do it and you don't have to. But
Yeah.
yeah, in Mexico my parents are like, "Oh, you know, your last name is now Robinson." I'm like, "No, it's not."
Yeah, I know. Well, in some of the colonized countries, like they're still really like holding the colonizers' Christian values and kind of imposing that. And you know, and so like to bring it to 2021, I don't know, what was this year even like for you to see, you know, how Canada even functions? Like what was this year even like for you?
Ooh,
Loaded question.
so many things. You know, I'm from Mexico. Everything is worse there. So that
Fair.
is kind of helpful in a way to be like, okay, we're going down the wrong path, but we are not gone all the way down. So I can kind of see what's ahead, and it's bad, but I know that we're not there. So this year, with all the dumpster fires just popping up everywhere, it's like, yeah, it sounds familiar. This is usually how it goes, especially here in this province. I have a hard time keeping up with the local news, provincial news. That's it. That's where it ends.
Isn't it
Like,
incredible? Like it every day there's like three things that happen. And I thought Trump was bad.
yeah,
Like I can't believe it. I can't believe some of the things that come out of these ministers' mouths. And our
yes.
premier for that matter. And now because of the pandemic, oh, this is a fun fact. My husband and I grew up with Dina Henshaw.
Oh yeah, I was going through your podcast episodes, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, no, they graduated in 93 together and I graduated in 94. So like, because they were just a year older than I. And so we all grew up together because at that time Sylvan Lake was super tiny. Like I think when we moved there, it was like 2,000 people. Now it's something ridiculous. But yeah, back then there was only like 2,000 people and there were still cabins. Like people literally lived in cabins. And now they've done a lot of like demolishing all the cabins and putting up ridiculous houses. And so now it's become a place where like houses are ridiculous. $200,000 houses are, the norm. And it wasn't
Mhm.
like that when we first moved there. But I mean, I had a great childhood in the sense that I had like we had the water slide there and it was like world renowned. And I had season passes and I had the lake and it was kind of before too many people were there and it was too like now it's polluted and there's not much
Mm,
fish. Like when we were there, there was like you could go fishing off the pier and catch fish, but now there's just kind of I don't know, it's gross.
yeah.
So yeah, and but like it's too bad for the folks that are there now, but I had good memories growing up there at the time, and other than my parents divorcing, that was shit. But what do you do? What do you do with that? I don't know. So yeah, that
Yeah.
was a little bit about us. And yeah, anyway, so we knew her. And then when the pandemic happened and everybody thought she was like the hottest news ever, and even the
Mhm.
clothes that she wore became some kind of fashion statement at one point in time. So
Yeah, and how
yeah,
things changed.
oh God, now she's like really, well, I don't think people think highly of her. I don't think she's very popular anymore. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, well, I think after supporting the best summer ever, everything like I feel like we still had a little bit of hope that she was kind of holding the fort for all of us, that she was just trying to hang in there for the well-being of Albertans. And then the best summer ever happened. It was like, you know what? I don't think that's why you are here. I don't know
No.
why you're here, but you don't care about us.
Well, yeah, and like even in the States, so like as of right now, their main head fellow said, "Oh no, we're just gonna go to 5 days quarantining
Yes.
now." And I mean, that goes against the science. Like the most basic lay person knows this now. I like it's obvious that all of the medical community who are in any sort of leadership have been bullied into this, we have to conform with capitalism
Mhm.
and politicians, hey? Or is that just me? Like I hope not.
Yeah, I think that's the way it is right now. It's like, okay, maybe a few people have to die, but we have to feed the machine. So get back to work and we'll see how it goes. Like, you know what? When you see all the anti science fake news being shared on social media, and then you see governments doing stupid stuff, then it's like, you know what? You are allowing them, and you are giving them reason to believe in those things. It's like, yes, I'm pro science, and I know that sometimes people discover things later and we need to readjust what our expectations and what we were doing. However, things like the
Oh, yeah.
oh
Go.
yeah, like the like really, so people can get back to work sooner. Of course, there's no other reason than that.
And it hurts. It hurts because it's like, our like the children who can't get vaccinated, like it's so
Mhm.
obvious they're just being used as guinea pigs, and not just for this phase, but the phase before too. And I don't know, how parents could just go along with this. Like I don't understand it one tiny bit, because they like this long-term COVID is a real issue, and we don't really have
Mhm.
real science towards it, but it seems like we're all just okay with it now. And so anyway, I'm kind of at that point in the pandemic where it's like we all sacrificed, and now for what?
Exactly. For what? For the economy? Um, is that what we're doing it for? Like, I don't know. I like this last few months, I was kind of going out more often, and like eating in restaurants for the first time. I was like, well, yes, I don't want them to close down, but then at the same time it's a little bit of like, well, yes, I want you to stay open, but I also don't want to get COVID. I don't want your staff to get COVID.
I know, I we were doing takeout, like,
So
yeah, lots of takeout to try to make up for that too. But at the same time, it's back to that. So we had like this major issue happen in our life where we thought, my husband got laid off last year, and we were getting close to the end of the year of unemployment. So he was looking pretty desperately, and found a place in Lethbridge. It seemed like such a great dream job. So we went down there, and what ended up happening was we were there for he started in May, and then November they laid him off unexpectedly, and lied to his face all the way up to that moment, saying, "Oh no, things are fine, things are great," and he was like, "Oh, okay, things are okay." So we didn't see this coming in any capacity, and in this time we were renovating our house to sell it. So we when he lost his job, thankfully, we had a bid that the person who was bidding chose not to go along with it, and thank God they chose the same day he got laid off, because that was the easy decision for us to come back to Calgary.
so you
So
came back to your home.
yeah, we did,
That's
but
so good.
with lots of debt, right? Because we were
Yes.
doing the renovations, and like we were paying like rent is ridiculous. We were paying rent there while paying our mortgage here for months. So while trying to move. So then the wear and tear of our vehicle, like it was such a financial drain. I can't even. But thankfully I had my viewers actually stepped up and gave me like I had people give me $2, and you have enough people give you $2. We had enough money to get a moving van, thankfully, because we had actually both hurt ourselves since May to November trying to move down there, because we're not young 20-year-olds anymore. So it was like we had to get a truck, and we did. We packed and packed and packed the truck. There was one nice day in there. We rode the Harley, or Darcy rode his Harley back to Calgary, so it was parked in the garage before the big snow came. So
Mm.
it worked out for the best in the end, and thank God I was able to get a job right away. So
Yeah.
yeah, because EI still hasn't come through. There was a problem with the ROE, and apparently, like employers can screw up our ROEs, and it's perfectly acceptable to screw up a family for months when it comes to unemployment. So I needed this job. So I took the job as quick as I could, and I'm grateful for it because it just saved our butt this month, I tell you. And so that was a pretty major event that happened on top of all of the I just don't even know how to say it, insanity of COVID-19. Like it was just such an incredible year for us. Like, I'm so tired of it. I can't wait for it to be done. I can't wait to break ties completely with Lethbridge at this point. Holy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that it's been a pretty wild ride. But my community, like, and when I say my community, I mean I don't understand why people follow this podcast, but they do. And thankfully, they, or on social media, they follow me and, they all stepped up and I'm so grateful for that. And the Indigenous community, there's a wonderful organization. So folks who are writing checks for year end nonprofit stuff, you say Awuton and Braiding the Sweetgrass, those were the organizations that really stepped up for us and, gave us a Christmas. Really, we never even put up a tree. We were just too busy moving.
Yeah.
And we had a tree that we gave away actually. And I gave it away because I thought, well, we'll probably get a new one wherever we're at and, make sure it fits wherever the entrance is. And we
Yeah.
just never got there. And then when we came home, there's a big piece of me that's like, well, I'm Native, and why am I celebrating a stupid Christian holiday anyway? We open gifts, don't get me wrong. We still exchange some gifts, and but what we've been doing now is when we got here, we did a burning ceremony and burnt some of the stuff that we needed to let go. And then every full moon, I've there's only been the two so far, but we have a sacred fire as well, and it's just important for us. I think we're gonna start focusing our life around the moon cycle as opposed to the Christian cycle, and just kind of go from there. So anyway, we're just trying to reevaluate, what does Christmas even mean to
Mm,
us. So as we try to decolonize away from this imposed system. How about
yeah,
you? What is
that's
Christmas like for you?
it is the same than everyone's. I was raised a Catholic, so Christmas has always been a big deal, and I like the tree.
Yeah, you just cut out when you said the
First,
tree. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I keep getting something
Yeah,
table, so I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, trees, the food, the gifts, like I like all of that. I was gonna say, and I forgot because of this computer thing. Um,
it's the worst, isn't it? You just get on a roll and then you end up freezing for a second. And I swear this internet is, I don't know if it's the internet. I don't know if it's my
I
old
don't
computer. I
know,
don't know.
because I have the thing to see the internet speed is actually pretty good. It's going on. I just don't.
Yeah, we cut out again. Darn. Yep. See, so we're definitely having technical issues for those listening, but I think what's important is that we got from her that she's Catholic. She enjoys the Christian Christmas like everybody else, and I mean that's just our normal society. I mean, I've done this for, well, I'm about to turn 44, so every year we've had a huge Christmas, and this is the very first Christmas we didn't, and it was more, thing is, because we were still kind of licking our wounds and had our tail between our legs and trying to, you know, just wonder what happened. But I'm glad Christmas was good for everybody. I want that for everybody. I want everyone to enjoy Christmas.
I'm back.
Yeah. So as a Catholic, was it like for you to hear all about these the graves around the residential schools?
Well, yeah, that's I mean, I won't say shocking because we all know the reputation of the Catholic Church. So it's not like that, right? But it is very distressing that it was able to remain concealed for decades and unacceptable, right? And I don't know, like I'm not a practicing Catholic, so it's like I have my distance to it. Um, but yeah, like I, I don't know. And I like, do you really think the church can do anything to repair the damage, like beyond money? Like, can the damage really be undone?
Yeah, so I think so the damage was done really badly to me, and not just by the Catholic Church this year. Prior to the job loss in November, the gaslighting from regular Canadians on this, um, it broke my spirit, broke my heart, showed me no matter what I say, it will never matter. Like it will never matter, because my ancestors, my elders, my every generation has told Canadians. It was written in the 1996 Royal Commission. It was written in the 94 calls to action. And it was just so obvious that even the so-called allies hadn't read it, because had they, they'd know and they'd be
Mhm.
upset, and they weren't. And then when the bodies were refound, and the shock and horror, like I just felt so upset and gaslit by this community. I was just like, why are we even talking? Like what do we have possibly in common that we've been telling you about these graves and you have totally dismissed our voices? Like I think I understood the gravity of that anti-Indigenous bias to its extreme because of the
Mhm.
lack of understanding from Canadians. And
Mhm.
so I was like, I'm still going to go into counseling, just to try to unpack, because honestly, it's like, and I've said this for years, where you get abused by a man, and everyone goes, well, why'd you stay? Why'd you, like, gaslighter and gaslighter, and it takes years to heal from that. But like literally, it's Canada that has been abusive, continues to be abusive, gaslights us, has this like whole CBC propaganda to gaslight us, which all of the media does, and everybody does it, and everybody wonders why we're upset. And so I yeah, I don't even know if it's just the Catholic Church at this point.
Mhm.
Like the police chief came out and said, don't call us racist. Like he has never apologized, or the Calgary police or the RCMP. The worst, actually, they've invaded the Wet'suwet'en for the third time now. They don't apologize for missing and murdered Indigenous women, Indian residential school, kicking homeless out on a regular basis. Like, how do we, like? I was there a few years ago at Pride, Calgary Pride, when the Prime Minister apologized to members of the LGBTQ2 plus community who were kicked out of armed forces, out of the RCMP, because there was a whole campaign to get rid of any LGBTQ2 plus through any of the government. And the Prime Minister apologized. And ironically, I don't think Canadians understand, like, it's -20, and the mosque is open to the homeless population, who are mainly
Mhm.
Indian residential school survivors or their descendants. And, like literally all these so-called Christian churches have reconciliation committees, and they're just like, well, these goddamn natives, and they're sure not opening their doors to the house or to the houseless people,
Mhm.
and have never thought to offer, despite Indigenous saying in social media, saying prior to social media, like, you should be doing more. And so, like, it's really hard right now for me to say it's just the Catholic Church. Like, it's just this total imposed system, and all of its residents who still don't know what treaty they're on, still don't know that they're treaty partners, still don't know the TRC calls to actions. Like, I don't even know how to, you know, say it's just them. But anyway, I think the idea of the Pope coming to Canada to apologize to the Indian residential school survivors, like, that's one of the calls to action. So it really bothers me when people have opinions on that, because it's like, your opinion doesn't matter. Thousands of survivors said this is what we want and need. So, like folks like me, I could care less about the Pope coming, but I know it matters to my grandma. I know it matters
Yeah.
to my aunt. I know it matters to my uncle. I know it matters to my mom. So that's why, like, it's not my space to say, oh, they shouldn't come. It doesn't matter. It does matter to them. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a call to action. So when I see settlers give their opinion, I pretty much want to take a baseball bat to them. But, obviously I can't. So it's just really hard. It's been a really hard year to see settler opinion on anything Indigenous when it comes to not amplifying our voices ever, let alone now. So, yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if the Catholic Church, they've promised money they never delivered on. Like every single church that's in the city of Calgary right now should get scammed, every one of them, because there are dead Indigenous people all across Canada, because it has always been perfectly acceptable to murder us and just discard us. So we're everywhere. And that's ironically, like, Calgarians don't get that. They don't see it. They don't even open their doors. I hear the Calgary Homeless Foundation talking about the houseless population, and you never hear the word Indigenous, reconciliation, Indian residential
Mhm.
school survivors. You never hear them say those type of words, right? They don't care about the calls to action. They don't care about the inquiry reports and the calls to justice. It's just, you know, rhetoric, really, when it comes down to it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm interviewing you now, but I am like, I'm new to this country, right? And obviously, the kind of information I've got, it is like the mainstream, and I'm really not really well informed on Indigenous issues. Probably a little bit more this year, but I'm still pretty, and like, it's embarrassing, but I've been really bad at keeping up um, with that sort of stuff. But it's worrying, in a way that's, worrying is probably not the right word, and this should be deleted. um but like, in a way, it looks to me that anything that's not white doesn't exist and doesn't count. And I don't want to compare my experience to your experience, because I'm sure it's like, I only get a tiny bit of racism. But still, it's like, I feel gaslighted and I feel invisible and I feel all these things. And it's like, so basically, unless you're white, you don't exist.
Yes. Yep, that pretty much sums it up. You nailed it right there. And even
It's,
there, like white women get gaslit all the time too. And I actually, I'm beginning to wonder. I'm really trying to unpack that too, because I was raised to be a Karen, really, but I don't have any power or influence the way a Karen does. So,
mhm.
like, it's really hard to understand, why there's always this underlining assumption that we have any power at all. And even for women, like, I don't, I see white women sometimes the most disempowered, unless they're going to attack an Indigenous person, and then, man, to you, then they're a full Karen, like they're full out there. Or Black people or any other immigrant that they deem lesser than them, like, you see it, and it's so awful. But that's our society, right? And it's always been that way. um as far as I can remember, violence against women has always been okay in North America. So yeah, it's really hard. And I see gaslighting as like the beginning form of violence against women, right? Where
Yeah.
or any community for that matter, right? Is just saying, oh no, you didn't remember it right, and trying to assume the worst of the person instead of like listening to them and letting people have their experience fully. So it's yeah, it's hard. And then, I've watched my stepmom and her family trying to deal with Canada's ways. I mean, honestly, they're Austrian, so they're white, but yet, because they have an accent, they weren't treated the same
Mhm.
as if not. And my mom, and you would never, she doesn't have an Austrian accent whatsoever. So you wouldn't know actually. And actually, people have mistaken us to be blood, even, which is kind of funny. But anyway, so I've seen the immigrant experience through those eyes. And then one of my aunties is from Hong Kong, and she married one of my Dene uncles. Um, so my cousins, they look like, if you were to say they look Chinese, you'd say, yep. Oh, they look native. Yep, they look like both, right? Like there's
Yeah.
no question there. So it's been interesting kind of seeing racism through everybody else's eyes too. I think the Black Lives Matter movement really helped me unpack a lot of my anti-Blackness, because when you're raised in a white supremacist society, you inherently are raised with sexism, degrading anti-Blackness, degrading anti-immigrant sentiment. Like, you see natives say anti-immigrant sentiments all the time, even. And it's frustrating because, like, they're just adding to the racism. But then I
Mhm.
get lots of brown people say really racist things to me too, because they were colonized, they feel empowered, they don't know, so ignorance makes them proud to be arrogant and ignorant at times. So like it's hard, it's all around, and it's all rooted in white supremacy and racism at the end of the day, and us taking on those forms. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting because in Mexico, like all the time, if you talk to any Mexican, they're gonna be like, in Mexico, there's no racism, only classism, and it's like I've been here for 10 years, I've experienced it, and I'm like, we are racist. I've been racist. I've said really awful things that I should have never, and if when I did, someone should have slapped me in the face because
Hmm.
it wasn't right, and now I know. But it's like, why sometimes I feel like, why did nobody told me? That's
Yeah.
kind of how I felt also with the Black Lives Matters thing. Like I was like, nobody told me, and until I experienced it, or then it's like, oh yes, of course that's wrong. But I felt like somebody needed to actually do something to me, and like I can see it from both sides, right? It's like, why do I have to explain to you that what you just did is racist? Like, I don't want to do that, but I'm also like, but how else will you know? Because I didn't know. So yeah,
Oh, I
it's
can tell
really.
you, like, so I grew up in Sylvan Lake, and I didn't recognize how much how anti-Semitic my own family was, and my own community. And it was actually a friend that I went to school with that said, "You recognize that that's a really, like, you shouldn't say that. That's racist." And it was Jewing someone down. Like, that was, I used to say that, and it was thankfully my friend who said, that's really wrong, and unpacked that. We unpacked it right
Mhm.
then and there, and I was really grateful for that. That was probably the first time I remember somebody calling me out on my racism, and I'm really grateful for that moment, frankly. And of course, later when you're unpacking, how normalized it was to have crosses burning down the street in Caroline, and having someone like this. We had a teacher in central Alberta that used to teach Holocaust denialism, actually.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no. That was here, Keystra. A lot of folks might know that. One of the reasons why I follow Warren Kinsella's work is because he wrote about that. It was called Web of Hate. I have it somewhere, this book, and it's still one of my favorite books, because I think a lot of people don't understand how much anti-Semitism was in central Alberta at the time I was growing up in it. And ironically, one of my grandpas actually fought Nazis and got a Purple Heart for it, but yet here my own family says anti-Semitic crap in my own circles, right? So thankfully a friend called me out on that. So it's so funny how that all works out. But yeah, I had to unpack a lot of it, despite um, you know, uh, NWA came out at the time that I was listening to music, and we all knew saying the N word was wrong. So we were like, well, why do they have it in their name? That doesn't make any sense. And that was never really explained to me. Rodney King getting beaten, like in my circles, it was, oh, I wonder what he really did. And it's like,
Mm.
so racism has always been a gaslighting thing for me. And growing up confused about how Native am I. Like I was constantly told by some people to be proud of who I was, but yet from others not to be proud of who I was. And society told me very clearly not to be proud to be Native. So, I had a lot of internalized shame and hate. So I'm sure I was the worst racist there was for the longest time, actually, ironically.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
So
I mean, and it's not okay, but it's okay to recognize it, better than, no, I'm like super progressive and I will have never done anything racist. Like, no, we all have. And
I said the N word in front of one of my favorite friends, actually, and it just came out, and I was literally saying, "You never say the N word," and then I said it. I couldn't believe it, so that happened this year. It literally happened this year.
oh
So
my God, Michelle.
I know, it was so embarrassing, but it happened. So just to add to your point, though, that we all do it, and we all have to unlearn it, and we have to be very conscious of it, and if it's hard for me, I do understand
Mm,
it being hard for other people. But at the
yeah.
same time, I do wish that people listened when we said this is
Yes.
problematic.
Exactly. Instead of explaining back why it's not problematic, because it's usually how it goes. Oh, no, no, it was not racist. I just said that because of it's like, I'm telling you,
Actually, this
it
is
was.
literally a conversation I have all the time with people when they say they're native Calgarians. I'll always say, because I know what they mean. I know what they're trying to say, but I always kind of poke fun at them because I'm an ass. And I'm like, so what kind of native are you? And then they're like, oh no, let me explain my racism to you. And it's like, yeah, I know what you're trying to say, but I'm trying to point out that, it's problematic for you to use the term native and native
Yeah.
whatever. Oh, I'm a native this, native that. Are you sure you got that Indian Act and Post status card? You sure you want to use that term?
Yeah.
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 I have lots of people prior to me really walking down the red road say really racist, really really racist things against natives, and I'd just pull out my status card, and then they'd like apologize and trip over themselves apologizing. But the fact that they felt empowered enough to say it to me.
Yes, I bet you get some of that, they think you're one of them, and it's like, nope.
Yeah, no, but it is kind of like, I don't have a lot of moments where I get to watch people eat it. So anyway, back to 2021.
Right.
What are some things you're looking forward to in 2022? Because I don't want to say the words, oh, I can't get much worse, because as soon as you say that, it does. So I don't want to say those
Yes.
words. But like, is there anything that happened in 2021 that you're like, this will not happen in 2022, and I can't wait for this not to happen?
Wow. I can't wait for another wave not to happen once we're done this wave of COVID. Like, seriously. I hope this is the last one.
Right?
Um,
How many damn waves do we have to have?
yes, like it is just difficult, like let alone the economy and all the crap, capitalistic stuff, but just the social connection, I would love to be doing this in person. And all the people I interviewed this year, like interesting people that I would have loved to be face to face and I could say hi to them in the street if I saw them. But instead, it's like, oh yeah, I met all these cool people, but I will not recognize them if I see them.
Right?
And it's
It's
not the same way. This is not face to face.
I know I have so badly wanted to meet you face to face. That Jeremy fellow, I actually, I feel like me and him don't mesh right on Twitter, but he's like, I can read his writing. He's such a great writer. So I'd love to meet him in person one day, and hopefully we can sort things out. But yeah, just there's so many cool people I want to meet in real life. I'm really grateful. I know Taylor McNally in real life. I really lucky to have gotten to know her. Adora, like I know her in real life, so that's been nice. But there's a few people I just want to see in real life, and I can't. My friend Sima, I feel like we used to always go to all these events together, and I just miss her. I just miss being around her.
Yeah.
My friend Chantel, I just miss them. So I gotta sneeze. And that's the thing. So this week is this like wave of COVID. And every time I cough, every time I sneeze, I'm like, oh my God, please don't let me be asymptomatic. Don't let this be the one symptom I have.
Yes.
So, and now, so apparently we can go get these at home kits. Have you
Mhm.
gotten one yet?
I did, yeah, but my husband got his right away because he just happened to be by a pharmacy when it was opening, and he just went in. But we had to shop around to find mine. It's been, yeah, like we did our test before because we went to Jasper with my husband's parents. That's where they live, and yeah, they're old, so we had to do our little tests to make sure we're not bringing the plague
Oh,
over.
it's the
But
worst, isn't it? Like I would never, I don't know if I could live with myself if I
yeah,
knew I had COVID and or not even that I knew, like if I had
even
COVID,
if you didn't know.
no, but like if you didn't know and you spread
Yeah,
it, like I think
yeah,
I just don't know if I could live with myself. I'd feel so bad.
yeah.
So obviously I don't understand these anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers at all. Ironically, because we delayed vaccines for my daughter. We did
Hmm.
because I was like, I don't know, she's only like this big. I don't want to put that much in her. And then when she got older and she could like articulate how she was feeling, of course I feel way different about it. But
Right.
at the time, so she was exposed to chicken pox and she was 5 and we hadn't exposed her so that she wouldn't have to get that vaccine. Um, so ironically, I do understand anti-vaxxers to a certain point, just not these
Hmm.
types. Like this type, I like there's a responsibility. When Samantha was exposed to chicken pox, I kept her home for the full 14
Hmm.
days. And it was like the day before she showed the pox. People were like, are you sure she just can't go back to school? I'm like, no, you gotta wait like 2 more days and then we'll send her if she's fine. But no, then she broke out and had the full out chicken pox symptoms, fever. She felt awful. She hated it. Don't
Oh,
blame her one tiny bit. But at least it's done. It's over with, right? And my
yes.
stepmom, she never got the chicken pox until one of my brothers did, and then she was sicker than a freaking dog. And I remember that. So she would have been in her 30s at the time. And she said it was the worst thing ever. So she totally supported me giving Samantha her chicken pox at the like age of 5, right?
Yes. Yeah, better get it over with when they're kids.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But with this COVID, like we don't know much about it. We don't know the long-term effects. And now we know after 2 years, like it's not fun. So
Yeah.
obviously, like the soon as I could get vaccines, I did. I have all 3. My daughter has 2. I don't know when she'll be eligible for 3. So anyway, my
Yeah.
husband, he has his 2 as well. So I don't think he's eligible for his 3rd yet. I
For
don't know
third
yet.
one. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So this was a vaccine that we were definitely down for getting, and yeah, I don't know. I wish I understood these anti-vaxxers enough to. It just seems like the biggest amount of white privilege I've ever seen on full
Yes.
display. That's what it is to me.
Yes, yes, totally. That's the one thing that is like, yeah, obviously you've never experienced any tiny bit of challenge in your life, because the moment someone tells you you have to wear a mask and you have to get this vaccine, it's oppression. It's like, obviously you have never experienced anything that takes you out of your comfortable sheltered area, because hey, it's also a bunch of white people. Like, what a coincidence.
And almost all men, like most women don't
Yes.
have full access to medical care to this day. Like even even the whitest of the whitest women still don't have access to all the healthcare. So whereas with men, like, geez, the Viagra is everywhere. They get to have whatever they want.
Yes. Yes, totally.
So yeah, I still have to go get those home tests, and I want to get them just because well,
Yeah,
first, it's an
it's good to have
experience.
them.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's an experience. And so I this job that I have now, I'm like, it's an essential service, so you're
Hmm.
with people all the time. And despite wearing a mask all the time and trying to wash my hands as much as I possibly can, I mean, I'm still riding transit, and again,
Yeah.
possibly exposed a lot more than average Joe, I would think. So I think it's really important I try to find some of those tests and have them at home, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, go from there. So
Yeah.
you said you're super new here. What do you think of our weather?
Super new, like a 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that new, but I'm still new. There's a lot of stuff that I've had to learn. Um, the weather is not the worst. I kind of like the cold, and then I don't know, it doesn't last forever. So I don't know.
Did you become much of a skier or maybe snowboarder?
No, no, I'm too old for that. I'm scared of breaking my bones.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm still not into it. Even skating, I don't like skating.
Yes.
Not my thing. So it's kind of funny because like, you have all of these people who love winter sports, and I'm just like, no, no, I like to read and watch Star Wars and make fun of politicians. Now, no, I'd prefer not to do that. I like hot tubs and hot springs.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, like winter sports, I think like you either start when you're a kid and you can fall and not break anything. Like even like young as a teenager or something, but not when you're in your 30s.
That's funny. Well, you
It's
you
too
would have been
risky.
here pretty new when the flood happened. What was that experience
Yes,
like for
that
you?
was, yeah, yeah, yeah. That was just 3 years in. So like I'm a full Calgarian now because I've experienced all these things of like the, what was it, the snowmageddon when it snowed in September, the flood. Like I've been here for all the things, all the forest fires. I've been here, like, yeah.
What
But
did you think of Stampede?
I went there twice. It's a cultural experience.
Oh, it's something. It's something. No, I always wonder what people outside of Alberta think of us with our Stampede, but I think folks don't understand. Like, so I worked downtown from what 90, the late 90s until I had my daughter, and like, people don't understand, like, you go to work at like 6:30 so that you can watch the Stampede parade and have a parking spot. And at the time there was something called frack juice, and it was frack master. They had this big Stampede party, and they give you like champagne inside your orange juice. This is how you
Mm,
literally started the day at like 7 in the morning. And then you just kept partying and you were expected to be at these events too, actually, because
yeah.
all the oil industry, like, they're either Texas or Albertan, and like, it was all part and parcel of the whole deal. Still is. I don't know why I'm speaking in past tense, probably because I don't do it anymore, but other
Yes.
people still do it. But at the time you don't know, right? And ironically, watching my mom being beaten, by my dad, and them fist fighting all the time. It's like, this is like literally my family, the microscopic part of this whole missing and murdered Indigenous women issue of, like, white violence against Indigenous people, and that bigger conversation, and how it's all integrated in the exploitation of the land, which is all Calgary. Like, we do it
Hmm.
internationally, nationally, and locally. Like, it all comes from here. And ironically, Calgarians being so blissfully unaware, and me being that blissfully unaware person for, I mean, at least 10 years of my work, drafting wells and pipelines, I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very interesting because early, like my first stampede, it was like the whole vibe of the city changes. and it's like we're all in this together. Everybody's dressed up and everybody's friendly, everybody's drunk. And then as every year time went on, I realized, so during Stampede, someone passed out drunk on a bench on Stephen Avenue. It's okay as long as you're white.
As long as you're white and you got a cowboy hat and boots on, and then it's
Exactly.
fine. But if you're a native,
Exactly.
anytime, it's not okay, you know.
Yes.
And it's funny you should say that, because like we're just talking about right now. Right now it's so cold. The mosque is opening the mosque for anyone houseless, but not any of the Christian churches, you know. So
Yeah.
like that white supremacy is so painfully clear, except to white people. They just don't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't get me started with that, because I have a thing with the city. Like they're doing this little fire pits because vibrant neighborhoods and stuff. But when advocates were asking for warming spaces for the unhoused, oh no, 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 that's too big of a deal. Oh, but I can get a fire pit in the park down here because that's for the right kind of people, and
That
they serve that.
this is why I wanted you on, because there's nothing more that pisses me off than drinking in the park with an alcoholic drink, as long as you're white.
Yep.
Because if a native shows up in a park with a beer, we're not just we're going to get stomped by the cops. Everyone's going to blame us for it. But as long as Giancarlo and Kara and his crew do it, then it's fine. Then it's totally cool. And it's like, that's not okay. That is a huge double standard. That is unacceptable. And yet people don't see it, you know. And
Yeah.
I knew I was wasting my breath on a lot of that right there, because it was like, how can you not see this? How can you not see the discrepancy right now?
Mhm.
I have a really hard time. I've been taking public transit all month and watching the public, like whether it's the transit police or whether it's the police,
Mhm.
both just go after the houseless on
Yeah.
Marlborough train station and the Rundle, and everybody's totally cool with it. In fact, I'm sure they were the ones who called. And
Maybe they did.
it's so hard. It's so
Yeah.
hard, because it's like, here are residential school survivors right here. We so-called reconciliation time, and you guys are boot stomping and killing people. Like, I can say the names, like Robin Fiddler, Sonny Crazy Bull. Like, these people are literally dead thanks to the men in with guns, and everybody's cool with it. And I cannot wrap my brain around it. And we're supposedly all about reconciliation and the
Mhm.
MMIW inquiry, and we're not even close. My counselor blocked me on Twitter, so I can't even have this conversation with him. I'm literally the co-chair for this city on
Yeah.
MMIW. It's incredible. It's like, if there was ever a time I felt more gaslit, it's right now, and I
Who's your
can't.
counselor?
Chabot.
Oh,
Yeah, I
of
like an idiot.
course.
I actually put his sign up when he was running for mayor on my lawn beside Nenshi, because I wanted to support them, and now he's blocked me on Twitter. So yeah, it's such bull crap. You try so hard to build these relationships with people who don't really want to listen to you, and then the moment they figure it's convenient, they block you. And it's like, he doesn't have a clue how hard it was for me to even try to have this relationship with him, and put, kind of put to the side some of his comments because of ignorance,
Mhm.
and then him do that. Like, he has no concept of it. So it's just like, and
Yeah.
it's not just him, like Giancarlo, like so many others I tried to have these relationships with, and they just, I'll never forget, one of his staffers tweeted out on Canada Day, it's really too bad if you can't enjoy today. And I was like, and she didn't say it at me, she was just kind of saying it generally.
Mhm.
And I was like, you're spitting on every Indigenous person with this comment, and you don't even know it because of your arrogance, right? And so I'll never forget that. And this was, of course, after the discovery of all of the well, the
Mhm.
rediscovery. Like, I don't like that term discovery, because we've always known they were there. We've always told Canada they were there. and it was a discovery to Canadians who
Hmm.
purposely excluded our voices, who purposely wouldn't listen to us, right? So
Yeah.
so hard. So yeah,
It's
it's been a really hard year because of this
yeah.
conversation, and yet I don't think to average Canadians they get it at all. So yeah.
Yeah. It's something I've been trying to like understand because I wrote about public housing and nobody seems to care about public housing. And it's like, okay, so there's people we don't care about, like, and by we I mean like the society at large. It's like there's these things that for some reason don't get to us. So unhoused people, we don't care. Indigenous people, we don't care. Overdoses, like we care, but we don't. You know, it's like, oh yeah, that's too bad. Sad times. Or we're going to wear an orange shirt or something to commemorate. But it's like, but you don't really care. I know you don't care.
Right, you know, and not putting together the importance of it, like just not getting it. And so a
Yes.
big thing that happened was after, the CBE was shamed into it, they finally changed the Langevin name. But out of
Mhm.
principle, they just wouldn't do it because they were like, you fucking native, and you're not going to tell us to change this name. It was just, they were so staunch about it. At one point in time, I was trying to engage with them, and literally one of the trustees said, well, this is a problem that's been ongoing and will continue for generations. So it was like she literally spit in my face with the whole, I don't really care that your kid's not in our schools. We're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like that was just so normalized for her to say to an Indigenous mother. And it's on record, like it's on video even that she said
Mhm.
this. And everybody's like, totally, no, it was totally fine. It's like, oh, okay, well, as long as you've normalized this kind of racism, as well. Cool beans. So that was kind of good that they finally did it. They just took the sandstone sign off. I was gonna go check it out when I had some free time. Maybe tomorrow I will.
Mhm.
Or maybe I don't know. I thought maybe I could do it sooner, but I just can't. I don't have the time and energy like I
Yeah.
used to when you're working full time now. So
Yeah.
it's too
But
bad.
do you think that, I mean, because it is somewhat symbolic, like, oh yeah, we remove this, but then it's like, all done, and you move on. You
Oh,
know, like I
honestly,
feel like it's
they patted themselves on the back with
yes.
a tweet. And I just felt like punching them all in the face. Like, you didn't do this. You fought us every step of the way. You spit
Hmm.
on us every step of the way. And now you're congratulating yourself for doing this? Fuck
Yeah.
you. Like, it's such, and it's not just that, it's everything. It's, you
Hmm.
know, the city of Calgary, oh, we're so proud of our reconciliation, blah, blah, blah. And it's like you literally are like kicking Indigenous people in the face every day, authorized shooting them and killing them with your patch on their shoulder. And you have the audacity, you've never apologized for half of these things that you do today, let alone yesterday, let alone months ago. And yet, you're patting yourself on the back for your so-called reconciliation. Like I don't know how to square this away.
Yeah.
It's so insulting. That's why I got to go into counseling because I can't even, I honestly don't know. Even the so-called best allies, if I seen them today, if I could even look them in the face. I remember giving a speech in the summer and we were talking about racism, and I can't hear another politician say anything about racism because I know they're full of shit. They're so full of
Hmm.
shit. Like,
Hmm.
I can give you an example after example after example of leaders who need anti-racism training by them saying they don't need anti-racism training. Like they don't even hear themselves be racist with it. So I don't know, or anti-indigenous bias, whatever the ism is for the day, like, homophobia, transphobia, that's a big one. With this conversion therapy, the things that politicians felt emblazoned to say, empowered to say, I guess,
Yeah.
like I couldn't, like, you're so bad at this. Senators about their with their anti-indigenous bias, like so painful, so clear. and they don't see it, and their party doesn't see it. Usually, almost always party politics, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so incredible. Yep. So it's kind
Yeah.
of, yeah, where I'm at. I don't know what I'm going to look forward to next year. Because even if the Pope comes, it'll just be stupid Canadians saying stupid things, making it 10 times worse, throwing a million pounds of salt on the wound. So like I just don't even know how to look forward to anything anymore. That's why I need counseling, because I can't even look forward.
Yes.
It's like, what's the next Star Wars thing that I'll be looking forward to? I haven't seen the Book of Boba Fett yet, but I did all my homework. I watched Attack of the Clones. I watched Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So I'm ready to watch it, but I have to wait for my family until they're all ready too. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's the only thing I look
Yeah.
forward to is next Star Wars stuff. Even the Ghostbusters. I was so excited for that. I was excited for it in
Yeah.
May when it was supposed to be released, but then the stupid pandemic hit. So then they put it off. And then the day before it was supposed to open was the day my husband lost his job. So I couldn't even enjoy it. Yeah, I
Oh,
know. I finally
yeah.
went to see it. I loved it. I would watch it a billion times in the theater if I could afford it and if I could, put up with COVID, but I can't.
Yes.
So I haven't seen the new Matrix either. That's the only thing I look forward to now is entertainment because
Movies.
I know I
Yeah.
won't see the excitement I need from my politicians, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the UCP leadership review. I'm sure that's gonna be fun in a not more of a sick way.
Oh my God. On TikTok, Josh Groban, I think that's his name. I can't anyway, he's always clowning. And Trent Daly, he's really good on TikTok. Like there's a few folks that make fun of Alberta politics, but I'm like, oh, thank God for this. Taylor McNally's tweets, she's like the only person I swear that gets what I'm saying about racism. So I really love her tweets. Yeah, if it wasn't for other folks kind of making fun of politics, I just don't know if I could put up with it anymore because I'm so done.
Yeah.
Holy, so done with it.
Yes, who knows? Let's take the irony. That's the only thing we can get from it and laugh.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's not good otherwise.
yeah.
I mean, anywhere, like really, I think this is a very strange time to be alive anywhere. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a movie. Let's see how it ends.
Right? We're going to have to redo all of the zombie movies now because now we have to make room for these anti-maskers and these, folks of privilege who think they're for freedom when they've never stood for anything freedom ever. Like we're going to have to redo all the zombie movies now. I never thought they were that wrong, but they are. Oh, and all the government failures as opposed to like, I remember the one with Matt Damon where it's like the military actually did good and was helping people. And it's like, no, let's back that.
No.
That's not what real life is going to be like. I promise you.
Yeah, all the movies where the Americans save the world. That's not how it happens.
No.
Again.
So yeah, I don't know what to look forward to in 2022. I hope, God, I can't wait for one day when I can go back to Banff National Park and go into the hot springs again. I can't wait for that day.
Yes.
I know that they recently opened, but I haven't checked it since this new wave. But I really want to go there. We used to do that almost every week. We would probably go at least twice a month. And that was like our self-care kind of thing that we did.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't done it since COVID started. So that's something I miss, but I cannot wait to do again. And I'm sure nobody else cares, but that's kind of one of those things I'd love to do. What are some other things? Oh, today's like a really important day. Everybody asks me, how's your daughter? So Samantha, update to everybody. Samantha has, as of today, passed her class 7 license. So now we have to contact our insurance company and let them know we're going to have a brand new beginner driver.
Nice.
Coming to an empty parking lot near you.
that's great.
Yeah.
I don't want to scare her, but I failed my road test twice. I think so. But it's because I'm an experienced driver. That's why I can't pass.
I'm gonna put her in. So I took AMA driver training. So I'm gonna do that for her because at the end of it, they usually, like, if you time it so that at the end she's 16, then she can use that same instructor to get her test.
Do the test. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've never met anybody who's taken the training and then not passed it. So, and then it's also better for your insurance if you do the training. So that's part of it too. Why I would do it is that it's just better that way. And as well-meaning as we are as parents, we're never as good as an actual driving instructor.
Yes,
never as good. So that's another reason, so that she can learn bad habits from them instead of me. So
yeah, exactly. No, and one is more receptive to others than our own parents. My parents taught me, I taught my sisters, and because after me it was like, no, we're done with teaching people how to drive. So I had to teach my sisters.
Yeah, no,
and now I
don't
can't pass my own test.
That's so funny. Hey, how that works out. My God. I was one of the first people to get a license of female in my family because my family is old school and they're like, only men drive, right? So yeah, no, I've been driving. My husband was like, what? No. And he like literally gave me the book and we drove from Sylvan Lake to Red Deer. He's like, you got 20 minutes to study this book. And that's how I got my learners. So
Good.
Funny. That's how that works. Anyway, I really appreciate you being on my show, talking about, ridiculousness of Calgary from your point of view. I've read parts of your blog. I love your blog. So I'm going to put a link of that in this as we share it, because I want people to be paying attention to what you're doing. I love the Sprawl, one of my favorite news agencies. So obviously, if you ever have any great articles, I try to retweet those too, because I think, independent media is the only kind of way we're going to have any more clarity. I'm sure the CBC executives are all conservative appointed executives. So, to me, I think the CBC is super conservative. And ironically, out here in Calgary, everybody's like, those damn liberal CBCers. And I'm like, oh my God.
I know.
If you're Indigenous, and like, to me, I hear the racism coming from them all the time. And it's like, does not anybody else hear this? Oh no. Oh, you're all white people that listen to this, not just, of course not.
I guess so, but yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
I listen to CBC radio religiously, especially in the mornings, though. So, I could quit listening, but I can't. Just can't break it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Some of it is good, but yeah, I agree with you.
It's hard. Well, I have this exit, I'll say, and you're more than welcome to chime in, because you must have experiences that you might want to, hey, that reminds me. So don't hesitate to chime in as I say these resources coming up. And thanks again for being on my show. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Michelle. This was fun.
Oh, I'm glad. That's the point, is that we should be having fun and doing some healing with it. So I'm so glad. Good. I'm proud that this podcast has given solutions, cultural safety training, cultural first aid, and all of them to create a safer space for Indigenous people of color, those with a disability, and LGBTQ2+ to speak. I want to say thank you to authors Cheryl Ward, Chelsea Branch, and Alicia Fritkin for putting together this great part about what is Indigenous cultural safety and why I should care about it. You can find it at heretohelp.bc.ca. And if you were to Google Indigenous cultural safety, you'd actually find way more resources than when I first started saying these on my podcast. Their work, those cultural action tools, I've said over hundreds of times in my podcast. So please support Indigenous work like that as part of your reconciliation work and settler understandings. I'm just lucky enough to highlight them and repeat them here. Internalized racism or lateral violence is another form of violence Indigenous and marginalized folks experienced by the structure of racism. I think we talked a lot about that today. I hope people are hearing it. Racialequitytools.org has lots of resources, and including one on internalized racism by Donna Bevins, which I highly recommend. Do's and Don'ts for Bystander Intervention by Americans Friends Service Committee. That's a really great resource if you see some sort of oppression dynamics happening on like the C train, something like that. Also, acttoendracism.ca is a really great resource here in Alberta. You can text them at 587-507-3838. Indigenous have been talking about our issues, sharing our traumas in reports, commissions, and public hearings, just so it can be regularly disregarded. Oh yeah, that was another point that really pissed me off, was hearing the councillors talk about those anti-racism conversations that happen at City Council, which I refuse to participate in. And being like, oh my God, there's racism in the city. And it's like, thanks for fucking not listening to me for years. Thank you.
Yeah.
So anyway, honor our words, honor the treaties, listen to politicians and their policies and platforms. If they don't recognize the marginalized in their budget with Gender Equity Plus, if they're cutting violence prevention programs and services, Indigenous education, uterus health choices, harm reduction, safe consumption sites, gay straight alliances, lack of human rights for migrants, immigrants, folks with disabilities, know that your vote to that party or that person is going to directly negatively impact marginalized people. Demand that they implement the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to actions, the recommendations of the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, multiple reports about child welfare reform, violence prevention programs, and now 231 calls to justice from the National Inquiry on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. Denying these reports is a form of abuse called gaslighting. Our people are experiencing extreme racism in the educational, justice, and health institutions, with multiple reports that say the same things. Demand change from election platforms and politicians. If they don't understand colonialism, racism, privilege, sexism, they have zero business running. Should be understood by all politicians, parties, community organizations, sports clubs. A great article I said out loud was Truth Before Truth, how non-Indigenous Canadians become allies. There's so many resources now on how to be a good ally as a Canadian to Indigenous people. If you're experiencing emotional distress after hearing anything we talked about today and want to talk, call the First Nation and Inuit Hope for Wellness helpline at 1-855-242-3310. It's open 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can also, they have a text option on their website, hopeforwellness.ca. If more related to missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit, you can call 844-413-6649. Again, 24/7 crisis line for support requiring assistance related to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. For non-Indigenous, there are distress lines in your area, usually a functioning 211, or you can call 833-456-4566. The 60 Scoop Indigenous Society of Alberta, you can find at ssisa.ca, and you can look for hashtag survivor driven. I see Adam Northpagan always doing good work out there. Really grateful for that. If you see or experience racism, report it to Act to End Racism or text at 587-507-3838. If you see or experience racism, don't hesitate to reach out. The Trevor Project also has tons of resources for LGBTQ youth as well as trans support line. So you can go check them out at lifevoice.ca/crisis supports. And of course, Kids Help Phone 1-800-668-6868. I used that as a child, so I encourage others. Violence is my everyday reality. Every Indigenous generation faced it. That's why I started this podcast, to speak freely, without interruption, without tone police, without leadership shaming, without gaslighting questions, as many people don't want to hear an Indigenous opinion, but sure want to tell us theirs, even though it's rooted in ignorance. Microaggressions, people dealing with internalized racism, those who are gatekeepers, those who survive off the status quo. You know, internal and external racism is an everyday reality. I want to say thank you to my ancestors, my granny, my mom, of what strength looks like through your example. I want to thank my dad for teaching me to be strong and blunt, my stepmom for showing me what a proud culture is through her Austrian family and roots, and for teaching me to be a proud Calgarian. It's through her I'm a second generation. I want to say thank you to my husband Darcy for producing and editing the show. On top of being my husband, my childhood friend, father of our child, and support down my journey of the Red Road, he has witnessed decades of racism and sexism. To our child, who we are blessed to learn from daily, we are honored you chose us. You give me daily accountability to be a better and stronger person. I hope my daughter and my family will be proud in the future of us trying to discuss these present day issues in a way that they'll understand. My native Calgarian Patriot account, boy, I tell you, saved my butt this year. I cannot thank you all enough. That's where you can pledge and support. Thank you everyone for showing your support. If you value listening or watching and you can afford to give, thank you. For those who cannot afford to give, I'd love to hear from you at nativeyyc@gmail.com, where you can send your comments or your questions. And for folks who e-transfer, that's usually the best way. Password Calgary. I now have a YouTube channel where you can go and subscribe. You can go to nativecalgarian.com as well and go to my pin posts on social media. And lastly, I want to give side eye to those Calgary rabbits. You're lucky I'm not tradish. And my beautiful cousin responded, or you'd be in my dish. Thanks for listening and all the best to you all for 2022. And I pray that everybody has a safe holiday as well. Thank you for listening. And thanks for being my guest.